Okay, I think we're on. I'm excited. I have not gone live in so long. It's good to see you guys. Hey, how's it going? Make sure to. So, by the way, I haven't set up. This is a new setup for me because I just moved back into my original house, and I have my mic arm here, and my camera is in a little bit of a different spot. So, if you could tell me if anything sounds wrong or looks wrong, I should see that it doesn't look wrong. But if anything sounds wrong, let me know. And I'm excited to get going today. Hello, how are you? How's it going? How was your holidays? I hope you had a nice break. I didn't really break, but I love what I do so much, so that's totally fine. Hello from Bangladesh. How's it going? How are you? How was your break? Please, everybody, tell me how your holidays went. I know I celebrate Christmas, and probably the majority of you, I don't think do, but I know everybody still has like an awesome New Year's celebration, and just in general, it's a little bit more time off than the usual. So, what kind of SQL language and to what extent does one need to learn? So it's okay. It's starting off with an interesting question. So essentially, there's a bunch of different SQL languages, sort of, but they all are pretty much the same as this thing called just SQLite, where if you go to if you take like a generic database course, they most likely will just use something called SQLite or SQLite, whatever you want to call it. And it's really just, it's select, it's where, join, all the common stuff that I do, and I very rarely go above and beyond and do the MySQL specific stuff or the SQL Server specific stuff or anything like that. I mostly just do whatever is in SQLite. I find that's enough for PySpark. It's enough for whatever database system you are using. That normal kind of SQL you learn is honestly enough. And hello to the people coming in. Again, please let me know how your break was. If you had a nice holiday, what you did. If you if you did anything interesting or special, let me know. I'd like this to be a couple different things. It's almost a 15,000 subscriber party, which is fantastic. I appreciate you guys so much for allowing that to happen in less than a year, which is crazy. I want it to be getting to know you guys for how your holidays went. If you guys care about a little bit about what I did, then feel free to ask. And I guess I'll answer that question. So, can I name and explain the practical applications of machine learning, data science, and deep learning? Well, honestly, it's about everything. It's pretty much everything. So, okay, so let me first diagnose what these different words mean, and then I will share what each of them in particular, what might help solve. So, let's start with data science, because that is the most broad thing, and that would encompass, basically I say if you're a data scientist, that means you know machine learning, and so I know I have here data science, machine learning, analytics. Data science and machine learning I consider very, very closely intertwined, and it all uses analytics as well. But basically, so data science is really about practical analytics. So analytics is just number crunching for the most part. You could put extract, transform, load, ETL in there, which means moving around data, getting it where it needs to be, whether it's in available to the boss for a dashboard that he'll look at every day, or maybe it's down all the way to a data scientist that would actually use these to make machine learning models. So all of these words are very closely intertwined. Data science and analytics are actually really close as well. So I'm really just going to say that machine learning and deep learning are pretty much the same thing, because most of the time for machine learning we use deep learning. Deep learning is a category of machine learning which uses something called neural networks, and deep neural networks, so basically just a lot of parameters in a model. So machine learning is about making practical models, whether it's regression. Regression means predicting a continuous value, like maybe my height or my weight. It's not very much, either of them. Or maybe a categorical or classification model, which means putting me or someone or something into a category. So I'm a I don't know, I'm wearing a blue shirt. That's a classification problem. Machine learning and deep learning could help figure that out, and in particular, that's a computer vision problem. And so deep learning is very common nowadays to do to make these machine learning models, because it's better than a linear regression or like a support vector machine most of the time. It's often better than a random forest or some of these more classical machine learning methods like k-nearest neighbors. But also it's not always better. It's usually better for like specific domains like natural language processing, computer vision, which just means NLP, natural language processing, just means understanding language, whether it's spoken, written, or whatever. And computer vision just means anything our eyes can see. We try to do that. We try to understand that with deep learning. And it turns out that neural networks, particular classes of neural networks, are good at solving that. So the practical applications are really whatever you think makes sense. And even on the weekend, I was actually trying to think about, I feel like I'm pretty good at this stuff. Maybe I can solve some $1 million problem this weekend. I don't know. I couldn't come up with any super interesting problems that I think were worthy of solving quite yet, although I'm thinking about it. But really it is open to imagination of if our eyes understand something and we don't have a computer vision application that quickly recognizes that already, or at least you don't, there's not a good app out there that is popular where you can go on your phone, click a picture, and it understands something and returns a result that's very useful, then I highly recommend you go out and do that, because it may be worth $1 million. It may help a lot of people out, and a lot of different ideas. Okay, so thanks for asking that question. It's a really good way to get started, and hello to all the people that are here. Hello. So the holidays went well. I'm very glad to hear that you started your new semester. That's awesome. What are you studying, and where are you at? So Bangladesh, yes. Cool. Hey, what are the remote work opportunities for machine learning or data science field? So yeah, it's an interesting question because remote is, well, obviously I'm remote right now doing my job basically, but it's really open to the employer. So most people right now, most jobs in particular, would be okay right now, especially with, unfortunately, Omicron, the coronavirus variant. It's still kicking around for sure, and actually it's not been great on Canada in particular, but there's a lot of remote opportunities, and pretty much most jobs are. So if you want to check them out, I would highly recommend going to something like LinkedIn. It has a bunch of remote job boards. Usually it's even in the job title as well. It'll often say remote. And even if it doesn't, there's a lot of leeway where if you are a good candidate and they want you, but you aren't able to go physically to the country, it's expensive for them to fly you out there anyway, and it's a lot of legal things going on when they do bring you to a particular country. So it might be easier for the company and you to be remote, but I also understand a lot of people want to move countries as well, which is totally fine. Okay, so recruiters ask for SQL, MySQL, NoSQL, MongoDB, how to master as an analyst. Well, it's okay, so it's as simple as just practice it as much as you possibly can, but also I really don't recommend, because some annoying employer put like 4 flavors of SQL on there, that you should spend your life learning all of this SQL and all of that SQL and all of that one. Most of them are just the SQLite thing that if you learn the base commands, then that's totally fine, and I would learn one particular database management system like MySQL or SQL Server or whatever, and then, I really wouldn't waste your time. It's not wasting your time learning all of these different flavors, but trust me, an employer is not going to pick you because you know 4 flavors of SQL and someone else only knows 2. Like that's really unlikely. So spend your time trying to make your portfolio as good as you possibly can in a unique way, and not just kind of tailoring yourself to the job description on whatever they happen to write. Although of course you want to learn the skills in general that they're asking for. I have started learning in the field of data science, now analytical part. Awesome. Can you tell us if it is difficult, okay, to get a job in deep learning? What do you need to master? So you need to, deep learning is a long road, but I think it's really great. I forget what I have in the description of this right now. If someone could tell me if I have like my pathway or whatever here, or maybe I can look it up. But basically, yeah, here's my description. Okay, so in the video, in the description of this, I actually do have my pathway, and so if you want to learn deep learning, that is the route I suggest you take. Of course, there's lots of other options, but in general, so is it difficult to get a job in deep learning? Well, not a lot of people know deep learning, and the people that do know it are really good at it, pretty much. So I would, as long as you are able to follow that pathway down below and learn the things that it encompasses, like LSTMs, convolutional neural networks, embeddings, a little bit of natural language processing, no matter what, I think is important, but go down a particular path. So like computer vision, that's mostly the path that I went down. And really, as soon as I had a relatively prestigious academic background, at least the school, not like I have a PhD or anything, I do not. But University of Waterloo, it's a good school. I had a couple jobs on there, and then I showed that I knew deep learning, and that was enough for the employer to pick me. So I think that's just one story. Of course, there's many possible different ones. But really, to learn deep learning, you just have to love it, and I found it super, super cool, and I learned it because I wanted to learn it, and not in particular to get a job in deep learning. Of course, that doesn't have to be the case again, but really, I think you'll find that once you just start learning about it, you'll just keep reading and keep watching videos on Coursera and books, and it's just really, really interesting, so I wouldn't worry too much. And yeah, you should be able to get a job. There's a lot of jobs in it for sure. Can you speak about data science, use cases in marketing or media planning specifically? Well, so if for marketing, I have never been passionate about marketing yet. I feel like it's what I've learned the most of in the past year or so for this YouTube channel. And so yes, I've thought about how you can bring analytics to marketing. And of course, something that stands out in particular is actually, it's probably a reinforcement learning technique, a simple one called Bandits. Bandits, B-A-N-D-I-T, where basically if you show someone an ad, so if you clicked on this video, it showed you an ad, I'm not sure, but YouTube has to figure out, for example, YouTube, possibly like the biggest analytics company, kind of, they need to figure out which ad to show you. And so they are using it a ton, where it's like, okay, well, how do we know which ad to show you? Well, we know that you like data science. If you're watching this, I'm pretty sure that you like data science or you're interested in it. So we'll probably show you an ad based off that. And as well as a reinforcement learning technique where you learn from trial and error, where they will keep going and going and sending you ads. And if you click on something, then they know, oh, okay, I'm going to show you that in the future. And as well as even if you just keep watching, they are also tabulating just how long you watch the ad, and that is basically they would probably feed a lot of this information into a neural network to try and figure out which ad to show you, as well as more complicated things like they have to show a certain amount of this ad because these people signed up for this agreement. But that's the idea, yeah. What is the best roadmap to the journey of data science? Yes, so I do have my pathway down below, luckily, and that is really what I would recommend doing. Some of these certificates are worth getting, in my opinion, like the IBM one along the way is pretty good. The deep learning specialization, if you get that far, I hope that you do, I think it's really worth getting in particular, but no matter what the path, the courses are free, so that's the pathway I would take for everybody. You're very welcome. Yes, you're very welcome. NLP is, at first I read boring career. How was salaries in that field? Oh, the salaries are great, man. So it is booming, and the salaries are big. That's really all I'll say about that. And it is something that I am trying to learn about all the time. And the reason, I think part of the reason I read the word boring is because it just happens to be, maybe it's just a me thing. But anytime I go to read about natural language processing or these, watching videos on the subject, it gets very, very crowded in word-specific terminology. Where I assume some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Where it's like lemmatization and parsing these sentences, and it's very, very English grammatically, and I'm not a big fan of that. But once I think once you get past that, it would be a really, really cool subject to learn. And it's because of that barrier, where it's a little bit trickier than it's usually compared with computer vision most commonly. And so if you have computer vision and natural language processing, you can sort of kind of just jump into computer vision once you understand what a picture is, and then the deep learning stuff as well. And so the deep learning stuff is a challenge, but the actual barrier to the field in particular of computer vision, understanding what is in images or videos, and a video is literally just a bunch of pictures, so a lot of it is just, it's the same but another dimension. Once you understand that, you can kind of figure things out on what problem you're trying to solve. But with natural language processing, there is a fair amount of words going on there, a lot of terminology, and I think the barrier is a little bit bigger. But either way, they're both awesome careers for sure, with lots of job opportunities. So source system or data science free of cost. That stuff down below in the description is free of cost if you do not pay for the certificates. The material is free. How much does Corsair certificates value in the real world? It depends which ones. So let me actually describe, and I don't know if I can bring this tab over. Okay, no. I'll just describe it. So the IBM data science, which is at the bottom, and I recommend if any of you guys are watching, or for anyone that's watching, you can look in the description down below and see what I'm talking about, because that would make more sense. So I say, looking to become a data scientist, I would follow this roadmap. Begin your data science journey with IBM Data Science Professional Certificate. That is one of the ones I do recommend getting on your certificate if you can. Machine Learning Fundamentals, Engineering Machine Learning course also I think is great. Or the University of Washington ML Specialization. Personally, I would say that, so a lot of people don't like the Andrew Ng one because it's a little old school. It's kind of what brought me and many other people into the field. But it's not in Python because Python wasn't as booming as it was now at that time. So a lot of people don't like that, and they choose the University of Waterloo, that's where I go to, University of Washington ML instead. If you do choose the Washington ML specialization, I'll let you know that I don't think many employers know that one, but a lot of employers do know the Andrew Ng one. So that's why I have that listed first, and I still think it's better. Imperial College of London for math machine learning, I wouldn't really recommend getting that certificate. It's great, but it's not as good as the other ones, but it's still important to learn. The algorithm specialization, that would actually be quite nice because I think a lot of people don't show that they know this stuff and don't think it's as relevant because you're in data science, but it is. It's really important to get all of the fundamental programming stuff down. Voice, why am I seeing, okay, so am I echoing? I don't understand. Like this, like, what is this message at the bottom? Can I, what? Voice echo, like this? What are you saying? This message is held for review. I'm so confused. If any of you guys can help me out on what the heck is going on over there, let me know. I assume I should boot you out of the chat, if I can. Report, I think. Hide user on this, yeah. Okay, I don't know what that was. Okay, so basically, if I get back to that, sorry about that, I don't know what was going on there. So after I said the algorithm specialization, we have the deep learning specialization, which if you do that, I very, very highly recommend getting that certificate because that's the one that employers know that you know this stuff. Am I saying that it would immediately get you a job? No, I'm not. But it is the best certificate on there, in my opinion, to show employers that you know machine learning and data science is that you know all these fundamental deep learning algorithms. It means you immediately know everything that's prerequisite to that, and it means you know the most important stuff. So that one I do recommend. Apply your ML skills, TensorFlow deep learning specialization is not bad. And then move to the cloud. Anything cloud-wise, I think would be helpful as well. There's NLP and TensorFlow. We also have Spark specialization, which I think is I think a lot of people undervalue. Proving that you know Spark, I basically got one job because I knew Spark and most people didn't. And lots of other stuff on there. All of it helps, but those are the ones that I would consider getting. Okay, so can you speak about data? No, I said that. I want to develop some applications in the retail sector and medical sector and still figuring out what to develop. Well, it's hard to hit the medical sector unless you're already in there, and if you are, that's awesome. But retail sector, also kind of an interesting niche. Retail sector, I mean, predicting house prices is still what people are trying to do. That's the most common one, and it's the most practical to these organizations. Thanks for responding. You're very welcome. Looking to do my master's at University of Toronto, I think, and wondering how to do projects to add to my portfolio once I'm done the IBM program. Well, you really just start doing projects. So there's Kaggle. You can go to Kaggle and do the common ones. On the video that's featured on my home screen right now, it has it's the top 5 beginner projects, so those are good for everybody to do. And seriously, although it's beginner, you can get as advanced as you want. You can do these crazy models that maybe they aren't performing as well as a linear regression, but you're still learning a ton along the way. And so getting comfortable with those data sets, I think, is a good idea. And then, of course, your own projects. I have some heavy-duty tutorials. I recently released, on New Year's, I gave out the Fast API full website. If any of you guys haven't seen that video, I really highly recommend at least watching the first minute to see what you can be capable of with pretty much just Python knowledge and just copy-pasting HTML and making it a little bit pretty. So that project, that and the Flask one, and Streamlit is even easier. I'd recommend all of those as well. My application is cancer genomics sequencing. Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, feel free to ask me further about that. I know a little bit more than I used to because I just came off an internship where we did lung ultrasound, but I still probably am not the person to ask. Opinion on auto ML, auto SK learn. It's getting better. There's not really much for me to say. I was thinking about making a video on that recently, but then I wasn't super impressed with anything that was there. And even something like hyperparameter optimization, I made that video and actually did better than I expected it to. I still like doing most of that stuff by hand, by trial and error, rather than crowding all of this code in weird wrapping things to make sure that you could automatically adjust the different nodes, the different activation functions. It's not really something that I wanted to see. And so personally, I'm neutral on the auto ML stuff at this point. I'm a first-year university student and have a data science analyst internship offer for 6 hours a day. Okay, should I take it or concentrate more on school and practicing deep learning on my own? I don't want to be the one to answer whether you should take this internship or not. If you think that it will provide either financial help or if it's not that, or you will get a bunch of value out of it more than you would learning on your own, then I would recommend taking it. But if you don't think that it's either of those two things and you're taking it out of impressing people, and I'm not calling you out, I'm just saying that people do this, if you think it's about impressing people or your family or whatever, it's not about that. If you think it'll provide you great value, then please do it. Otherwise, I would think again. There's good message. Okay, I deleted 20 messages, so this is kind of confusing. Future scope of business analyst. It's not my forte, as in it's not really something that I advise because I think it's dying a little bit, personally. I don't want to say stuff like that because I think it's a little bit negative. But I would recommend learning business analyst. Kind of implies just analyst, but with tied to a particular company because it's all about their particular business, and less about general analytics that you can apply to everywhere. Of course, there's some of that in there as well, but I would recommend getting a little bit more, I hope I can say modern, not to say anything is super old school, but I would get a little bit more modern in my opinion. I have echo a little bit. Well, that's annoying. Okay, well, if I do actually have a lot of echo, then let me know. I don't know why I would. The walls, I'm bouncing off the walls. Okay, let me lower my mic volume a little bit and see if that helps. Here, 70. Okay, maybe that helps, and I can bring it a little bit closer. I don't know. Let me know if that helped. I assume you'd probably have to increase your volume level to make that better. Let me know if that did anything or if it really did nothing at all. And I'm also going to, with this arm a little more in my face, I'm going to pop out the chat, and hopefully it still works. And I can put it on the screen. Whoa, where did it go? Okay, I just lost it. Great. This is what I get for trying to mess with things. I lost my chat. Restore chat. Okay, let me know if you can still hear me and if everything's still good there. Yes, you're good now. Yeah, hopefully things didn't change. What is ML Ops and how can ML Ops have impact? So operations, basically, it's not really relevant to the salary thing, it's just something you have to do. ML Ops is, well, let me just pull out the definition so I can read off that exactly. But basically, the idea, here it is. So, what is the use of ML Ops? Unique aspects of ML projects. Sorry, this definition is not very good, not very accurate. Okay, the definition I did not like on there, but I can see why you're asking that. So basically ML Ops is about putting stuff into actual operations. It's about, sure, everything starts in R&D, so research and development or whatever, but then how do you actually go to get value out of that? Because we don't just make machine learning models because we feel like it, we make them because they provide business value. How do you make it provide business value? Well, first you have to do it, and then you have to put it into some part of a pipeline. And that means, so we have to bring data to that. Are we doing that in real time, where are we actually constantly pulling data from the user? So if I had a website, for example, am I actually pulling that immediate information from the user and running machine learning off of that data and then returning that back to the user or doing something else with that? Or are we just storing all of the information and then maybe once a month or once a week or once a day we're going to run a machine learning model that updates some things? There's a lot of different ways you can do this. And so the simple ones that I have are stuff like deploying it in Flask. Or Flask or Fast API or Streamlit, which are simple websites where we take information from the user, we run some machine learning model, and then we do something with it, whether it's bring it back to the user or do some more processing or whatever it is. Okay, so ML Ops is a broad term for really all of that stuff. Just about once you have a machine learning model, how are we going to get value from that? Okay, hopefully I removed the echo. We got selected as a market research analyst. I honestly don't really know what that means. I have heard it is different than actual data analysis. It's a good career choice. I don't really know what that means. I mean, I could take a guess, but if you could provide a little bit more information on what they said you would be doing, then I could probably provide a better answer than I could right now. What advice can I give to a junior data scientist asking for an opportunity? Okay, so if you were trying, I assume by opportunity you mean like an internship or an entry-level job, something like that, you really just need to keep working your butt off. Seriously, there is ways to ask employers, send out cold emails where you just say your skills and what you're asking for and how you can provide value to them. You can of course improve your personal portfolio by updating your LinkedIn and making posts and all of that kind of stuff. But really, you just have to keep working and improve yourself as much as you possibly can, and of course apply. So I saw some post yesterday that really annoyed me, which someone was kind of showing off on LinkedIn. I swear that's all what that LinkedIn is for. But someone was basically showing off on LinkedIn saying that they didn't get a job by applying to 100 companies a day. They got a job by, emailing people, and they were networking. And that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter how you do it. But they're saying that it was kind of negative to waste your time applying to 100 companies a day. No, it's not. It's really hard work. And I know because I applied to some of the bigger tech companies recently, and even that was annoying me because it's hard work. You have to really spend hours on this, and 100 applications a day will greatly increase your probability of success. It is just productive for sure. Like, there's some things that might be a waste of time, but applying is definitely not. You're increasing your probability no matter what. But all of that aside, you do have to work as hard as you possibly can to improve your skills, make projects, get certifications, get a prestigious academic background if you think that's what you need, and really just make your personal brand as best as you possibly can. And it's even greater if people come to you. So, with my YouTube and LinkedIn stuff, people do approach me, and lots of other people as well, even those that don't have as much of a social kind of aspect to this. They see people's great portfolios on LinkedIn, and people message them to ask them for a job. It's not incredibly common. It's not as common as getting a job through just applying or applying for sure. But you can. So do everything you can. Keep hope. Firstly, please keep hope that you can do this. You can do this. I believe in you, seriously, and keep trying. Okay, are there any free university certifications? University is pretty much a paid thing, so you're not getting a bachelor's degree unless you have an 101% average. You're not getting, you may get something like master's or PhD paid for if you did great in your undergrad. That's a little bit more common. And of course, all of those certifications are generally, so many of the things I have down below are associated with a university. So like Stanford is a pretty common one. They're common just in the world for being a good university, and also on something like Corsair, they are very common to have their name attached to that. So sure, you can. There's ways of getting those for free. In general, they're still not free, although they're cheaper than they're cheaper than the actual education for sure. They're probably not as prestigious, but they help, and they're a lot less time commitment and a lot more practical. But no, it's generally not free to get these things. But there is ways in Coursera. I've never done it, but I know a few people that have done Coursera financial aid to not pay for them. But yeah, I don't really know too much about it. How many months will require to learn 2-year experience guy? To learn 2-year of experience. I don't know. I don't understand that question. I'm sorry. Presently working in academia, want to make transition into industry. Presently am good at computer vision and deep learning. Any suggestion? Okay, so if you're working in academia, that's great. I think that'll prove very useful to you no matter where you go. You want to make transition into industry, that's fine. Personally am good at computer vision and deep learning. Well, if it sounds like you got the skills. It sounds like you have to prove to some people you got the skills. If you're working in academia, I assume that means maybe you've got a research paper out there, or you at least have the word of many people that you're worthy, and that itself will be beneficial. This could actually be a good chance, a good opportunity to get these certificates. And by the way, the Coursera Plus sale is on right now. If anyone's trying to grind out a bunch of them, but basically, you do need to prove your skills somehow, and it doesn't really matter how that is. You need to decide how you want to show your skills. Whether you want to start writing Medium blogs, or a YouTube channel, or post on Twitter or LinkedIn, or even Facebook, or anything like that. Or if you don't want to do anything like that, and you just want to increase your portfolio by just learning as much as you possibly can, and improving your resume, the thing that most people don't see, then that's fine too. My suggestion is to try and do things that show your value publicly for two reasons. I think, actually, probably more than two reasons. I think you care more about things when you show them publicly, because people give feedback, and even if they insult your work, it feels, you just want to prove people wrong, and that friendly competition is not bad at all. But most importantly, when you show your stuff publicly, you open up the chance for people to reach out to you, and that happens more than you might think. My JD, forget what that means, of market research analyst had required skills as Excel, data processing tools like Quantum, Askia. I don't understand, sorry. Okay, so I think I hit a few questions that I just didn't understand, and if you guys are still here, then if you wouldn't mind just asking them again so I can understand a little bit better. And yeah, so we hit the bottom of the questions. If anyone has any more, then I would be very down to continue answering those. Or we can think of if something else you want to do, let me know. Yeah, I think right now, also tell me about, I assume these are a few different people than who were here at the beginning, so do let me know how your holidays went, if you did anything interesting. I'd love to hear about it, seriously. Okay, have I tried freelancing and websites? So I don't have to. I know what those are. And if you're asking for yourself, if you should do freelancing on websites like Fiverr, I've actually never heard of Upwork, but I definitely know what Fiverr is. It's great, actually. I've done the reverse. So I've asked people from websites like those to do stuff like editing before. I never actually proceeded with it. But my experience with the platforms was net positive. I think it's great. But me personally, I don't really have to do that quite yet. People will generally just reach out to me through LinkedIn or through my public email if they do have anything that they want me to do, any contract work basically. Do I contribute to open source communities? I wish I had time for that. I just don't. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious if you guys know me well, that the open source community I would contribute to is TensorFlow. I think I'm probably able to do that with a little more practice. It is a different level of understanding, and actually it's probably a lot of C code, which I haven't touched in a while. But I would love to, personally. I just don't really have the time for it. I have trouble fitting in my day without that involved as well. So I think it's on the to-do list, to be honest. For machine learning, what are the key learning subjects and fundamentals to start machine projects? Okay, so basically, there is definitely a set of fundamentals that I think you should learn before jumping into your own project. And that doesn't mean that you can't watch someone else do a project, like me do a video, or just read about like a Medium tutorial on how to do something. That's fine at any stage. But if you do want to kind of do what I do, which is be able to just go and not totally dependent on some blog or some other material. Of course, you look at other resources, and that's totally fine. But before you get to that stage where you can kind of just sit down with a problem and know exactly the few things that you have to look up, there are definitely some fundamentals. And so that is linear regression. Understanding all of the associated pieces with that, I think, is extremely important. Deep learning is really just a more complicated,
non-linear regression, and all the non-linear means is just, it's not drawing a line, it's fitting a curve, and it's fitting a very complicated curve. So if you understand the fundamentals like linear regression, even the more specific pieces like how to interpret what the coefficients mean, as well as like R squared and the metrics there, interpreting how to assess how good a model is very, very important. Like mean squared error or mean absolute error, for example, understanding those is really, really important. And so that is all about predicting continuous values, and it's also linear. After that, you should probably learn something called logistic regression, which is really just a linear regression with some function applied afterwards that allows it to be a binary classification model, which binary classification, binary is 2, classification means which one is it. So it's just a linear regression that applies a function that can then say which of these two classes it is, which of these two things it is. So after you understand those two basics, which, to really delve into the math, I own a regression book and it has a lot of linear algebra in it, and you'll probably at some point see this pain in the butt equation, x transpose x inverse x transpose y, this huge complicated matrix formula thing. Yeah, you can choose to get into that specific if you want to. That's a bit of a rabbit hole of learning linear algebra and calculus, probably up to calculus 3, and a lot of other things. But you don't necessarily have to learn it to that level. You can simply learn how to make a linear regression, which is just, it's really just a linear combination. It's a coefficient times value plus a coefficient times value, and so on. And if you understand that piece, that's great. Anything more would be awesome as well, but you don't have to. As well as, linear regression, logistic regression, and then getting up to the more complicated things like splitting a set of data into a train, validation, and test set, where we train on one piece, we pick the best model with the validation set, and then we say for the end this test set of information we can use to evaluate our final model. That applies to every machine learning model out there, whether it is machine learning or deep learning. And then after you've got those statistics basics, I still pretty much wrap that in statistics basics. You understand underfitting versus overfitting is a very important topic, and then feel free to do whatever you want from there, really. Machine learning stuff like random forests, go ahead and learn what those are and how you can do them in scikit-learn. First it's decision trees, but then random forests, and then more complicated things like clustering, like deep learning, so convolutional neural networks, feed-forward neural networks, LSTMs, 1D, CNNs, all of that kind of stuff. You really can understand that a lot easier once you have a firm understanding of linear regression and logistic regression, and the simpler stuff where it's about just fitting some model, it's about learning from data to make a predictive model. You know how to assess that model, so you can say, yeah, this is a good model. I understand why it's a good model. And you get that whole process. Then, after you know all that stuff, more the deep learning stuff. So LSTM, CNN, all of that different stuff. And so those are basically the fundamentals that I would recommend. Just to recap, linear regression, which may or may not encompass the linear algebra, calculus, and probability, all of that stuff. Notice that I never said probability once, and yet machine learning is actually it's all about producing probability distributions, but to understand it at that level is a little bit extra in my opinion, although it's always beneficial. So linear regression basics, logistic regression basics, and then moving up to machine learning and deep learning, all that stuff. I hope that helped. Let me know if anything was confusing there. Thank you for the question. Where was I? Freelancing, open source, fundamentals. Okay, so is master's compulsory? That means required, right? To get data science job as a fresher, or bachelor's along with some specialization course too can get me a job. It is relatively job dependent. So they would say on there. Sorry, I shook this a bit. It would say on the job itself if they prefer you have a master's, and pretty much all of them say at least they prefer to have a master's. Nonetheless, I don't plan on getting a master's, and I have absolutely no worries of getting a job in industry if I wanted that. So I've had many internships that are, as prestigious as, or more prestigious as many entry-level jobs for full-time. And I'm not even done my undergraduate degree yet. So I can guarantee you that you definitely don't need to get a machine learning job, a master's or a PhD. But I can't say that for all jobs. There will be employers that, they do have a PhD and they want you to have that as well, or they do have a master's and they want you to have that as well, or they're just such a popular company that they are filtering by something like a master's degree where they don't have time to look through 10,000 applications, and they automatically screen out 9,500 of them to look at who they want to look at. That's just a metric that they chose, and those companies are missing out, but they have to optimize somehow. Okay, so you have to read the job, and by the way, no, I don't consider it a waste of time to apply to a machine learning job that says that you need a master's when you don't have a master's. It is, I think it kind of is, if you know that applying to this job is going to take a long time, like if it's an hour-long application, then probably don't spend your time on that. But if you're scrolling through jobs and you see, you're not really reading every single fine detail about whether it requires a master's or not, just send it off. Just apply, and who knows? As well as if you know anyone in the company, or if you want to be brave and send them an email and say why your skills are important for them and why you care so much about providing value to them, they are going to think about taking you, whether you have the requirements that are on paper or not. Seriously. So sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't, but you don't always. Even if it says you need it, it might not necessarily be true. Can you help us work on projects which are like industry level through open source as from GitHub, so that working on industry level projects gives more confidence on our skills? Can I help you on projects like industry level through? I'm sorry, there was just so many words, and I think I get lost in what the question is actually asking. If you could send another one that's a little bit more summarized and just a pinpoint question on what it is, then I think I would be able to answer that after that. Looking to integrate ML in Power BI? Is that what you're saying? BI? In the administration of my institution, most notably to highlight hidden relationships between data coming from every services or departments. Any thoughts about that? Well, I mean, it's a really good idea to apply ML to this space in general. I don't have any suggestions on how you would go about doing that, but I'm very sure that if you have an idea about applying machine learning here, then that would work out. Can I make video regarding GitHub end-to-end projects? Yes, I have, and I will continue doing that. I can pinpoint you, if you haven't seen my Python machine learning projects, that has a few that are really good. It has some beginner ones. It also has some very complicated ones, like the Fast API tutorial. It's a very great project that you definitely need. You need to use GitHub to deploy the application, and a lot more code than just writing a model on Google Colab. So I have a few of those already. I will continue to make those, trust me, and yeah, for sure. Okay. In machine learning Python in machine learning Python programming essential if Python? I think you're asking, is machine learning Python programming essential if Python is Python? I think both times you meant to write is when you wrote in and if. I'm kind of confused. So I'm going to read it as, is machine learning Python programming essential, and is Python essential to, if so, if Python's essential, how do you master Python? Okay, I'm just going to answer this. I'm a little bit confused, but I'm going to answer this as basically Python is the programming language for machine learning today, and it will be tomorrow, and it will be next year. I can't speak for really more than that. I suspect it would be as well. But I actually thought about making a tutorial on Julia. I thought about going through the process of learning Julia to make a tutorial on that, and I didn't bother because I looked at it and I said, this is worse than Python. And there was nothing out there that showed actually training machine learning models was significantly faster in Julia because all of that stuff is written in C under the hood in Python anyway. So I think Python is essential. I think learning Python itself, forgetting that machine learning as a concept, I think if you want to learn machine learning, learning Python as much as you possibly can is very, very beneficial. So up to at least classes, understanding how to make a class and subclass things, and getting comfortable with the object-oriented environment and Python virtual environments, understanding how to make a virtual environment and put that in Jupyter Notebook, I think is an undervalued skill for sure. So yes, to learn Python, I don't recommend spending time learning R if you're trying to choose between. There's lots of people that prefer R or already prefer Julia or whatever. But if you are yet to learn any of the programming languages, even if you weren't learning machine learning, many people would tell you to learn Python. And yeah, I plan on doing probably all of my tutorials in Python for the foreseeable future. And until something really takes over, like I really don't think that Julia is, I looked at the language, I looked how to write things, I don't think that'll be taking over Python, not anytime soon or ever, personally. But we'll see, maybe they change it. Or something else might come around, but yes, learn Python, please. One of the best resources for easy understanding of linear regression and probability things for the basics idea of machine learning. So to learn linear regression, there's a lot of different books on it. So from the point of view that I recommend learning linear regression, which is kind of just the bare bones of what it's doing, what problem it's trying to solve, and how it's going to do that, and not in the crazy linear algebra under the hood way, I actually have a playlist on integrating machine learning algorithms from scratch, and I plan on continuing that to make that to take that further. But it has I think 3 videos right now where it does simple linear regression from scratch. Then the next one is multiple linear regression from scratch, and then after that I think it does logistic regression. And those are the 3 things that I said earlier were really, really, really beneficial for learning all of this deep learning and machine learning stuff. It's the bare basics. So I would recommend going through those because I think it teaches you it from the way that you need to understand it and not the way that you don't. If you want to learn from someone that's not me, that's totally fine. There are many, many linear regression books and even just linear regression books out there. I forget what the names of them are, but they're very popular. As well as pretty much any machine learning course out there will do linear regression. So Andrew Ng's machine learning course, it's the first whole unit is on linear regression, if I remember correctly. And he also teaches that from a machine learning point of view, which means solving the equation in a way that's not just like a fixed linear algebra format, because that does not apply to deep learning. He solves that in the way that it applies to deep learning. And so, yeah, it teaches you it from the way that you need to understand it. Welcome. Currently, I am enrolled in Data Science Certification by IBM. That's great. What should I do next? Well, I have the pathway down below. You are on step 1. So I think it's under begin your data science journey. There's no shame in that. Awesome. I'm super glad to hear it. Step number 2 is machine learning fundamentals, which is with Andrew Ng, the thing I just brought up actually. So I recommend learning machine learning and deep learning. And if you like Coursera, then I would recommend doing. Just check out my description in this video or this live stream, and you'll see what I would recommend there.
Do I work on projects as repos in GitHub? Yes, I do use GitHub. If you do, then let us know that we can work and learn together side by side with you on GitHub. It is like working together in a project. Oh, you want to work on the same project. I don't have time for that. If that's what you mean, where we're actually committing to the same repository, I do not have time for that, and I apologize. I would love to, but it's probably not going to happen. If you want to see my GitHub account, then I assume you can type Gregory Hogg GitHub or Greg Hogg GitHub, and that'll come up, and you can see what I've done and what I'll continue to do. But I probably will not be actually working on the same projects. I'm sorry about that. Which book do I suggest to read for Python? I remember when I was trying to learn Python, I did read a massive book on that, and I forget what that was. Let me see if I can find that, because I did actually like it quite a bit. Sorry, I just punched that again, and that's probably loud. If I search Python book, let me see if the one that I read came up. Head First. Okay, so if you're brand new to programming, Head First Python, although I haven't read the Python one, the Head Firsts are very interesting. It's actually enjoyable to read them. It's something you can go to bed with and actually just kind of enjoy reading, and you're learning along the way. So I really do like those books. I should make a video promoting those, because I'm a big fan. I cannot see the one that I read here. But essentially, I don't recommend following a book because I think it's hard to learn programming without just loving it and getting practical and just doing things. For example, I made a fast API tutorial, and I had not seen a single line of how to do fast API code before making that tutorial. I just had to figure it out because I wanted to make a video on that. I'm not a master in it. But I did not go and read a book on fast API before I started making that. I follow the tutorials, I read the documentation, and I see, oh, okay, to do this, you do this. Okay, that's the very simple things. I made a first application. Great. And then I figured out, well, I want to accomplish these things. So I go and search up this particular thing I wanted to do in Fast API, and the result comes back, and they tell me how to do that. And so that is still kind of how I would recommend to learn programming. I would probably follow something still, so a book is fine. I just think it's hard to get practical with it. So I would do something like a Coursera Python for Everybody. University of Michigan is like a very just relaxed way to enjoy learning it, and you can since it's already on an electronic device for sure, then you can go and just follow along with examples, and even just going into Google Colab. And I don't know if I could do a Python tutorial right now if people wanted to see that. If the majority, let me do a blog, or not a blog. If I do a poll, and let me just ask right now, would you like a Python walkthrough right now? I'll ask that question. If it's an overwhelming yes, then I'll go ahead. Otherwise, we'll save that for a later time. But I do have many Python resources as well. I go up to, it's at least past the past functions in my Python masterclass. I'm still building it up. Yeah, so lots of different ways to learn it. There's Coursera options, there's book options, which as you said, that would be fine. But I would probably do it from a video perspective and then just coding things and figuring it out as you go. Okay, while that goes, I'm going to answer another question. The machine learning course by Andrew Ng is not in Python. That is correct. I have already started learning basics of ML in Python, so should I go for Andrew Ng's course? Yes, this is a very popular question, and I do not blame you at all for asking that question. So yes, the answer is I still recommend it. Why? It's because it's still, in my opinion, the best material to learn machine learning. And it doesn't matter that it's in a different programming language. He's not getting you to master Octave, which by the way is just a free MATLAB.
He's not getting you to master that. He is using that, one, because it was a little less popular at the time, but the material is still phenomenal, and two, because it is meant to implement linear algebra operations, which is what machine learning is all about. So I still recommend doing it. Employers love the certification if you want to get that, and even if you don't, even if you just want the free material, I get it. It's weird that I say learn Python, and then I'm recommending something that is not in Python. Many people recommend this as well. I think it is phenomenal. And it's good to see other programming languages to get a sense of that, yeah, there's a lot of similarities here, and there are some differences, and you get better and better at just learning different tools. But of course, I don't recommend learning Octave all the way. That's not the point of the course. Okay, what were the results here? I got a 25% 75% yes, and a 25% no. That's actually not bad. So let me stay. Maybe we'll do that in like 10-15 minutes or so, just to give an idea as to what's going on. I'm not giving a Python masterclass by any means. Okay, so can I please give us some techniques of feature engineering? I have an awesome video on that I put a ton of work into. So if you go into my channel and go into YouTube or my channel and then the video section, it should be 4 or 5 videos back. It is very clearly labeled feature engineering, and it is all about that. It has all the common techniques like categorical one-hot encodings, like even clustering and dimensionality reduction in PCA. It's got ways to pre-process or scale data to send it off to machine learning algorithms. So I've got that video. Please watch that through. And it's in different contents, so it has a table of contents on all the different sections of it. Go and learn what you want to learn from it. Very, very highly recommend watching that video. Can I make some videos on NLP? In the future, yes. To be honest, my skill set would not be able to produce amazing results right now because it's not what I've focused on, and it's in data science you have to pick something. There's so many things that you have to learn, and I'm trying my best to learn everything, which is very, very difficult because everything is changing rapidly, but I will eventually, I promise you. If I do ML, does it mean I'm also learning AI? Yes, it does. I want to go for AI, so what is the right roadmap for AI? Yes, it's the same thing. So basically, machine learning powers modern artificial intelligence. AI, or artificial intelligence, means smart things. Things are smart when they learn from data. We've just learned that. Well, there you go. Kind of a joke. We learned that. Old AI applications didn't use machine learning because machine learning didn't really exist, and so they ran in languages like Lisp, which is really just about if this do that, if this do that, if this do that. We have found that not only is that irritating to program, it is just not nearly as good performing as something that a machine learning algorithm could do. In particular, reinforcement learning is probably the one to go down to if you're really into like what AI actually means, like robots and really interesting devices. There's a big debate right now on what the heck AI means and why. Like, basically, we're saying that machine learning counts as artificial intelligence, and so by that logic, making a model that forecasts the weather is artificial intelligence, which is a little bit head-scratching. And so I like to think of AI as just like, building a fancy robot that uses machine learning, or at least building a fancy software application that does something very interesting. So AI I understand why it's confusing because, you even see commercials on TV or ads about, artificial intelligence is the thing to learn, and so you should learn machine learning, and you get lost in what you're actually learning. But yes, in general, if you are learning machine learning, it is learning artificial intelligence. It looks like we've moved up to an 83% on a Python walkthrough, which I can't really ignore at this point. So what I will do is answer these questions quickly, and then we'll do a Python walkthrough. You're very welcome. How was ML course on Coursera by University of Washington? It is my second choice. I would put Andrew Ng's machine learning ahead of it because employers know it. You are able to talk about it. Even if you don't choose to get the certificate, you can still talk about it in interviews, and many people know it. Most of the people right now that are in machine learning have taken or are very familiar with the Andrew Ng machine learning course, and it is phenomenal material. So I still recommend it. But the University of Washington is great. It's also a great option. You can see that it has phenomenal reviews on Coursera, and quite a few of them. How to deal with overfitting. How do I answer that right now? Basically, overfitting is about your model is too good at predicting your training set, and so it's pretty much just memorizing the training set. But you don't want that because then it's not able to generalize to new data. We want to apply machine learning models on new data and not just what it learned off of. And so how do we combat that? In deep learning, you can do stuff like you can always do regularization, which means putting a penalty on the coefficients of the model to drive them towards 0, which effectively reduces the complexity of the model. You can do dropout in deep learning, and I actually made a video on this which will probably help the most, which is hyperparameter tuning in deep learning. That goes over the popular ways to combat overfitting and other issues similar to that, like underfitting and just your machine learning model is just wrong in that video. Okay, one more. Web development skills for data science is required. Basic framework like Flask can I think you mean suffice, not suffix. So basically, yes. So basic web knowledge is very useful. So something like Flask, Fast API, Streamlit. Streamlit's a little bit different, so I wouldn't actually recommend that. Flask or Fast API or Django are 3 different web frameworks that are very, very similar, and they really will suffice, which is just about you bring data to the server, you do Python code to figure out what you want to do with that, and then you still have to return HTML because that's how I'm viewing it. Okay, that's the idea. And if you're not returning HTML, you're at least just asking the API for information so that you can do whatever you want with it on your application. Okay, so one more question. Okay, sorry, I'm about to do a Python walkthrough, so no more questions right now. Did that course in 365 Data Science is enough to learn everything? I'm actually not super familiar. I forget what it is. I've seen Ken G promote it a little bit. What is model deployment? It's about deploying a model. I don't mean that to be rude. It really is about putting it into. I don't get why people are. Okay, more than 5 people, like 12 people said yes to the Python walkthrough, and then many of you left. So I really don't understand. Okay, people are back. What is model deployment? Basically, it's about you make a machine learning model, and then you need to get data, bring data in, and then do something with it, whether it is on Flask, whether it is embedded in a browser, or on the device through something like TensorFlow Lite and whatnot. Okay, I guess for fun, I assume...
Sorry, I don't have any information about that, but I found something related. Do you want to know what model deployment is?
Hey Google, stop! I assume you heard that. That was funny. I don't want to show that. Fighting with my Google. I just said the bad word. Yeah, let's do a quick Python tutorial just to provide some basics here. Python walkthrough. That's not how you spell walkthrough, and you guys can't see that yet. Okay, so basically, in Python we have these things called variables, and so we can do something like x is equal to 7, and then if I ask the type of x, then x is in, after collab starts up, x is an integer. Okay, so that makes sense because an integer is it's a
a discrete number, it's -1, -2, 0, 1, 4, but if I did something like 7.5, that is a decimal value, which in computers we call floating point values. Okay, so that's how we store numbers. What do I recommend, AI, ML, or DL? AI is, ML and DL drive AI, and deep learning is the way to go. So x7.5, there it's a float. We can store text if we want. I'm saying words right now. We'd probably want those to store those in a computer, and we'd say do something like the quotes with hey. If I output that, it is quotes hey, and you can see here it has single quotes as well. If I were to type this with single quotes hi, that is also just the string of hi. And if I ask what the type of any of these things are, type of hey is invalid syntax because I somehow threw a pipe in there. Type of hey is a string. It's just going to say str. So those are the most simple data types. I feel like I'm missing one, but that's really all we need right now. And then you quite often want to store multiple of these things. So the most fundamental Python object is the list. We would do, by the way, I should probably end this poll because you're getting a Python walkthrough whether you want it or not. And okay, so if we were to store maybe multiple numbers, we could do, say, h is equal to the list of 1, 2, 3. I did square brackets there to make a Python list. If I output what h is, then it is simply the list of 1, 2, 3. This is an ordered thing, meaning if I do h at 0, so this is sub-0, then I am indexing this. The 0 is the first spot, and so h0 is 1. This would be the second spot, and this would be the last spot, jk. Remember, it's 0 indexed, so it goes from 0, and then it's 1, and then it's 2, that's the last spot, and then if you go anything more than that, you get that corresponding error because the list index is out of range. There is 0, 1, 2, and no 3. So that is a list, and you can also do stuff to again also show it's an ordered thing. If we were to do for x, I'm going to choose a different variable, for a in h, so in h, okay, what is in h? 1, 2, and 3 are in h. So if I were to print a, first it went through and printed the first thing, then it went through and printed the second thing, then it went through and printed the last thing, and then it was done. That is it. Okay, so that's called a for loop in Python. You go through the elements and you can do whatever you want with them. Of course, the application is not limited just to print them. We can do whatever logic we want in here. Like maybe we want to do something slightly more complicated and do print a times 2. We can do all this numerical stuff. A times 2, well, that prints 2, 4, 6. We can do divide. 0.5. Okay, so notice it is actually changing the data type here, where these are now floating point values. They are decimals. We do not always want that when we do division. If we put a double divide there, that does 0, 1, and 1. That might be a bit of a head scratcher for those of you that have not seen this before. Basically, if you do 1, this is called integer division, or dividing integers. So if you do 1 divided by 2, well, that's 0.5. Well, that has not made a full integer yet. That has only made half an integer, and so it produces 0. There's no integers out of that. If you do 2 divided by 2, you get 1, so that produces 1. If you do 3 divided by 2, you get 1.5, and so in total, that only makes 1 integer. So, yeah, that's about it for the simple stuff. And let's go on to some more complicated data types, like a dictionary. So if we were to do something like this, where we had these squiggly brackets, and then we said hi, and then colon 5. Then we'll do a comma, and then we'll say hey, and then colon 6. Well, it outputs that exact same thing. Why do we want this? Well, this is called a dictionary, which stores key value pairs. This is the key, which pretty much just means what we're using to look it up. So if we store this in a variable, we'll call this a, make it this, and then we'll just output a again. Then we can actually look up what hi is. If I happen to know, maybe these are actually people. And so if I had Steve and I had Bob, then if I outputted that, it would look very similar, but with those names. And if I said something like a sub Bob, I just want to know Bob's age or whatever we stored in there, it returns back 6. Or if I want to look up Steve, I could do a sub. That would not return anything, and so you can see this is a key error. This throws an error because this does not exist in the dictionary. You can't look up this key. If we did look up Steve, then we'd get its associated value, which is 6. Okay, these things don't look very interesting. With only 2 of these things, you would probably just say, why wouldn't we just either make 2 lists where one has the strings in it and the other has the numbers, or maybe just one list where it had both of these things or only one of those things. We want these because they are very, very fast. And it's a complicated discussion as to why they're fast. But basically, you can look up in an extremely short period of time, regardless of how big this dictionary is, whether it's 10, 100, 1,000, a million, a billion results, you can look up the corresponding value from any key very, very quickly. It is yeah, I'm not going to go into the time complexity or space complexity discussion, but it is very fast. So those are dictionaries. We also have, so those are dictionaries, we did lists. You can do sets, are pretty common. So we can do something like S is equal to the, you have to type it like this because otherwise it would look like a dictionary. S is equal to the set, and then we can do S dot add, say 5. And we can say S is the set of 5. Well, if I say S sub 0, set object is not subscriptable. Okay, so this is not an ordered thing, because if it was, then you'd probably be able to look up what the first element is. But the order doesn't really matter, it doesn't have any meaning, so they don't allow that. This would make more sense if we were to add a few more things, and so we could do add a few more things, like maybe 6, and then maybe 8. And if I output S, it is 5, 6, and 8. And yes, it kept them in order, but don't really worry about that too much. That's just how it's displaying it for us. So, yeah, we have this set. And then, why do we care about this thing? Well, it doesn't really show quite yet. But if we were to add 8, then it's still 5, 6, and 8. We added 5, then we added 6, then we added 8, and then we added 8 again. Yet the set is still 5, 6, and 8. This is because pretty much this thing's sole purpose, at least that I'm aware of, is to store a unique combination of these things. And so no matter what we add in it, every time what adding is going to do is, if it is already in the set, then it's not going to add it in there. And if it is not in the set, then it's going to put it in there. This is very, very useful, especially if we were to do something like just passing a set a list. So if we had a bunch of strings, maybe we wrote a sentence and we stored it as this list, where my sentence was Greg, which is me, is a very. In fact, let's even go with very. Maybe another very cool. And I'm just going crazy with this. And handsome. Let's go with guy. Okay, so if we had this sentence here, you could just output it, and that's what it would be. But we could use a set to do something like the set of. If I was to pass this whole list here, I'm just going to copy and paste that. The set of all this stuff. Then, hey, A and Greg, guy, handsome, is very, very cool. That's clearly, I didn't mean to actually. Did I type that? Very, very, very cool. Set Greg is a very, very, very cool and handsome guy. I am actually confused why that came up with very cool. Where did I write very cool? Greg is a very varied. There it is. Okay, I thought Python was doing something crazy for a second. So basically, you take a sentence, and then if you pass that directly to a set, well, then it is going to pull out only the unique elements from that set. And that is very, very useful for a ton of different applications. And you can even do more complicated things that I'm not going to get into, like unions and like intersections, where you combine sets to get different results based off of whatever you might want. So that's the main point of a set. It's about uniqueness. That's why you would use this thing. So we had dictionaries, sets. We had lists, which you can go into a lot more than what we did, which is just looping through it or maybe indexing it. But those are, from what I remember, maybe we'll hit another one at some point, the fundamental objects that I use in Python, and pretty much what everybody uses as well. So, what can we do now? We should probably write a function. Python is about functions. Most programming languages these are these days, pretty much everything. So if I was to write def, and then I had a function, which, you know, if you come from a math background, you've probably heard of f of x. And so what we could do is, well, I didn't specify what x is. Is this a number? Is this, well, actually, that's funny. It claims it's a number. Colab does, but if I was to put y, it would have no idea. There you go. It says any. So if I define f of y, then, well, I don't know what y is, but let's assume that y is an integer, and so I can return, this function will return y times 2. Okay, so then if I call f of y, then I can do f of 5. I made 5 an integer, it should pass 5 into this y here, and it would return 5 times 2. So it returns 10. But I never specified here that y had to be an integer. I did multiplication. What if I gave it maybe the list of, or not the list, just the string of hey. Wow, look at that. It actually was okay with that too. I passed it a string, and it returned that string times 2, which Python just happens to know that if you do hey times 2, and if we were to do that not in a function, let's actually just do hi times 2. If we were to do that, it just duplicates it. It does 2. And you could, of course, do 3 and whatever number you wanted. Well, is that true? If I do that times -1, that did not do anything at all. And now, if we do -2, it didn't do anything either. So it looks like if you multiply by a negative number, it just kind of it starts to remove stuff. I don't even know, to be honest. But the point here is that two things. We can make a function where we send information over and we return some result. And as well as these common operations, as you might think, are only associated with numbers, for example, like multiplication. You can actually do that with strings and other types of things as well. But if we were to send this, maybe something like the set of 1, 2, 3. Unsupported operand types for set and int. If we are passing it the set of 1, 2, 3, which is simply, the unique numbers 1, 2, and 3, that would go in as y, and we try to do the set of 1, 2, 3 times 2. And that just doesn't work. It turns out in Python that that's not something that you are able to do. So, what do we do about that? Well, we just don't do that operation. It's as simple as that. We don't want to pass sets to this function. So maybe something more common that we would do is kind of specify how you would use this function. And so we do this often with a triple quote. We do triple quote and then triple quote. You can see Colab is no longer complaining at me. By the way, if you don't actually know the environment I'm using right now, it's called Google Colab, and I use it for almost every tutorial, including the machine learning and data science stuff. So here is where we'd write what our function does. And there's a lot of different styles that you could choose to write this thing. You could do something like, maybe a first line that says what it does. Takes, so maybe f of y takes an integer, or an int, and returns its value times 2. And that way, when people do something like, I believe this will work, I'm just kind of guessing here. If we do, I think it's help of f, Okay, so if we run help and you write it in this format where you do right under here, right under the function, you do triple quote, and then you say what it does, then when you call help, it actually says help on the function in module main, don't worry about that, in f of y. F of y takes an int and returns its value times 2. And so we know as a user that, okay, they intend for y to be an integer, so I'm going to pass it an integer. Would it work if we pass something else? If we do f of hello, does that kind of work? Yeah, it returns something, but that's not what the user of this function, maybe you, maybe somebody else, had in mind. So that's how we write a function and document it. We can, of course, add different values to a function, like f of y and z. Well, what happens if we try to call f of hello? Well, that's not working. F is missing one required positional argument, which is z, and so we have to pass z as something. Even though it's not using it, you can see z does not exist anywhere where actual function logic is being used. But if we were to pass this in here, at least it would stop complaining, and so it didn't matter what we passed in, it just works now, which is great. There's other things we can do, like z equals 5. So z is 5, or I don't know if it's z or z, but z is 5 by default. So I passed in 6, and actually this will only make sense if let's just return z. So I pass in hello, it doesn't use that. It goes into y, but it doesn't use that. And we pass in 6. And so z was initially 5, but then we made it 6. Well, why is that useful if we specified what it should be normally, but we overrode it anyway? Well, a lot of the time, in fact it is extremely common, especially in these bigger functions that you might see in something like TensorFlow, where they have like 10 or 20 of these different optional arguments, where you might only specify one of them. You might just say something like hello, and then you pass that, and it keeps this default argument as it is. And this might not make sense in terms of the logic of why you might want to do this, but if we were to do something like, maybe we'll just call this something called optional, okay? And we'll set it by default to be true. I knew I was missing a data type. We have not covered booleans, which is things are either true or they are false. Okay, so this type of boolean object only takes two different possibilities. It is either true or false. And if we cover something, if we do something like x is equal to 6, then that is false. That's not true, because what is x from earlier? X was 7.5, so it's not 6. It is false. But if we went down here and set x equal to 6, now it's 6. Is x equal to false? That is true. Is x equal to 6? Yes, it is true. Notice the double equals, because the single equals set it to 6, but the double equals said, hey, okay, is it equal to 6? Then yes, it is. And also there's all these other different operations like less than. Is x less than or equal to 6? Yes, it is, so it's true. Is x less than 6? No, it's not. That's false, because x is 6, so 6 is not less than 6, it's just equal to 6. There is, of course, greater than and greater than or equal to as well. Okay, so that'll help us out for writing this function. So optional is true. I'm going to get rid of this helper thing for now. That was just how you write a function in general. We're not going to always do that though. Optional is true, and so we'll say if optional, we want to return y. Otherwise, we want to return just the value of 10. Is this function overly useful? No, probably not. But the point is that we are setting in an optional parameter here. We are saying, okay, if you want to override this, if you want to say, I actually have to run this. If you want to specify that optional, actually we'll make it false by default. So by default, it is going to return what? If we do f of just hello, it's okay with that because we pass in hello to y. It said if optional is false. And so this if statement, it says, no, if false,
Well, no, I don't want to do things. I only want to do things if they're true. And why does it look like my camera disappeared? Did my camera disappear a while ago? Or am I just going crazy? Why is my camera not there? Am I stupid? I'm so confused. My camera's dead, isn't it? But I see it right there. I can see my camera literally right there. So how can you not see out of it? Well, that's a shame. Let me try one of these. What? I'm not crazy, right? You can't. How long has that been going for? Is POO? I don't know what that means. Yes, no cam. Happy New Year. I'm so confused why my screen is black right now. Like, when did that happen? I might have to kill it before I can start again, which I really don't want to do. I honestly don't know what to do, to be honest. I will switch to my camera from the computer, I guess, which I think I can do just with that. And I'll turn off my camera. That's really weird. Because the camera is actually still working. Like I can see the output from the camera, but it just wasn't transmitting through. Maybe the capture card messed up. That's so weird. Okay, anyways, I'm going to unplug that. Sorry for this annoyance. And you're seeing a green screen, which I don't really care, but let me just fix that. Okay, sorry about that. That was weird. Okay, let me pull up the chat for 1 second. Hello. 2 minutes ago. 2 minutes ago. Very interesting. Okay, luckily I somehow noticed pretty early on. This also gives me a really good time to get a water break, so I'm going to be back in like 30 seconds or so, if that's okay. I'm just going to put this down here, and I'm just going to close that for a moment, and I'm going to mute the mic. Okay, sorry about that. Oh well. Alright, let's get back to our wonderful Python tutorial. Let me know if there's anything that got messed up there. I'm not really sure. I think it's fine. Okay, so f of y. Sorry, mouth's a little dry. So f of y and optional equals false. So if optional, then if this is true, if this turns out to be true, then it'll return this. But if this is false, then it'll return this. So if we do f of y and optional equals false, and we call it with f of hello, that returns 10 because optional is set to false. But we can override this. And so this is what many people do. They write functions like this, where you can say, hey, no, I want this to be true. I do want you to do this. And so it is going to return what we sent back to it. Okay, and as we saw, we could do help. And I think that's actually, sorry for the hold up, and then I'm going to say this, but I think that's pretty good for Python basics. We looked at variables, if statements, checking these equality things, look at how to make a function with help, and to specify optional arguments like this. And that's actually pretty good. One more thing I really want to do is, actually we already did that. I said, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. I just did that accidentally. So what we could do is also call the function like this, where say we don't really know the order of the required arguments here. What it normally does is it passes in order. Why did my RAM just shoot up to, I'm not using that much RAM. I'm barely using any RAM. What? I'm so confused. There we go. So what we could do here instead is say, hey, I want optional to be true, and I want y to be hello. Set y to be hello. And so it's totally okay with that as well, because then it's not really looking at order. It's just saying, hey, y, you're going to be hello, and optional, you are going to be true. And we can do this kind of like a mixture of things as well. So we can do is we can specify the first thing. So this is going to be hello. So the first thing is going to be hello. I just did that classic copy and paste thing, but that's annoying. Paste that there. I just did it again. Oh, kill me. Copy or cut and then paste. And then, sorry, I just punched that. Man, I'm not doing good right now. F of hello and optional equals true. So it's totally okay with this as well, because this hello, this gets sent to the first thing, which is y, and then this optional, that is going to be false, but we specify optional to be true, and it's totally okay with that as well. You can't listen? Audio working fine. You can't listen. Let me check why that would be. I don't think that's true. No, my mic is going. I don't think that's true. I could be wrong. Audio working fine. Okay, so audio cert. Yeah, I got it twice. No, it's the same person. The audio is fine, right? Can someone please respond? Is my chat now not working? Is the audio working okay? Okay. Okay, thank you. Yep, no problem. Okay, so let me close down the Python tutorial. You guys can, yes, thank you, okay. Let me share this notebook in case you do want to look at that. It's very, very easy. You just change to anyone with the link, copy the link, and I will paste that in the chat if anyone wants to see that for later. I hope that was a nice introduction to Python. I hope that provided some value. Okay, so done with the Python tutorial. And pretty much from there, what I would recommend you do is start looking up pandas, NumPy, TensorFlow, and Keras, those tutorials, and start to see how people are using them. Of course, it's going to be pretty confusing stuff at first, but at least the TensorFlow tutorials, you can kind of just look at that code and kind of have a feel as to what it's trying to do, and then you can see the outputs that it's making, which is really cool. Okay, so let me answer some questions that I missed. Okay, so, yep. You're watching this on work. I don't know what POO is. Is poo? What? Did someone actually make an acronym of poo? That does not seem right. What? Yes, okay. Happy New Year, Jackie Chan. Thank you so much for the awesome support for all of 2021, or at least the majority of 2021. So 2 minutes ago, yeah, okay, I'm catching up. I'm currently on my learning phase of data science. Me too. We're all in our learning phase of data science. That's okay. I'm planning to do this course on blockchain. It's a bit of a switch, so that's okay, but they're not the same thing. Is there any industry exist that have correlation? Okay, so you know they're different things. That's totally fine. Is there an industry exist that has correlation with data science and blockchain? So basically, you're saying, is there somewhere you are interested in blockchain and data science, which I don't blame you at all. I forgot that I'm looking in this camera. I kept looking at that camera, but that one's not turning on. Yeah, so basically they are different things, but there is companies for sure that work on both products, more so siloed right now, as in, for example, a bank here I know would be working on both TD, Toronto Dominion Bank. They do lots of machine learning. They are also moving into a lot of blockchain stuff. I do not know in particular where they are trying to very specifically overlap those things, although I'm guessing that there's lots of people looking into that. But there are at least definitely companies that do both things. Okay, you're still stuck in iterating the objects. Yeah, it'll take some time to understand programming. It's okay. Okay, good. Thank you. I got a lot of audio is fine corrections. I appreciate that. You are my god. I am a god. No, I really appreciate the kind words, and I'm really glad to provide value in your life. It means a lot. And greetings from Canada. Hello, Chile. I think that's what it is. Is it Chile? Am I being stupid? That's Chile, right? Like South America? Or am I being stupid? Yeah, it is. Okay, I was wondering if the spelling, for some reason, I actually thought the spelling was like ends in an I, which is like the food, and that's not right. Yes. um, Love from Dhaka? Is that? I actually don't know what that one is. Is that? Oh, the cap. Wow, I don't know what the capital of Bangladesh is. That's kind of bad. Um, Gotcha. Yes. I'm amazed I didn't know that. I know India, but I don't know Bangladesh quite as well. That's interesting. Okay, so where could data science be in the next few years? Well, data science is it's going to go everywhere. So you know how crazy popular it is now. It's going to be insane, seriously. So if you have not learned, or if you're trying to learn machine learning or deep learning right now, and you're at all worried about something like, oh, people, is machine learning going to be dead by the time I properly learn this stuff? Am I wasting my time? No, the data science will be freaking crazy and everywhere, and people, like everyone is doing it. Like people that just, there's so many people right now that have a job because they know the business, they know the particular company and the industry that they're in very well, and they use common tools like Microsoft Excel, which is totally fine. And they use PowerPoint to make explanations. But these people, and I'm not saying that these people have no skills or anything like that, because that's not at all true, but these people that maybe have a little bit less of the technical knowledge, so many of them are learning data science because that is how they can progress their career, even in the same industry that they're in. They're realizing, hey, these things are not super hard to learn. We can learn even without learning linear algebra and calculus and all the annoying stuff that's behind deep learning.
you could go and learn what deep learning does, the problems that it's trying to solve, and at least for the team members that you have, you can understand what they are doing. And although they understand their technical pieces better, you at least understand how they are providing value to your company. And so pretty much everybody is moving to do this, whether it is students that are, learning programming and figuring out that data science is just cool. Like I have friends right now that did a career. They did like 6 internships in software engineering companies, and many of them are just realizing like, no, this machine learning stuff is just more fun. Like it's just, you can do cooler things, and not everybody thinks this, but a lot of people are finding out like, yeah, just writing code or writing software isn't always the most fun thing to do. If you love it, then that's awesome. But me personally, unless it's something I'm really passionate about, which is like Pokemon or something that my childhood I really grew up with, unless it's something like that, then I don't really love just writing code for the sake of writing code. I like to make a machine learning model, which is code. It takes code to do that, but the code's not super bad most of the time. You can make a model, and if you understand, the different components that make up the model, then you just put them together, and then you call fit. Or if you know what a linear regression is, then you simply go from sklearn. I can probably do it just from memory, like from sklearn.linearModel, import linear model, and then a linear regression is equal to a linear regression dot fit with the data, and then you predict with it. That's it. So of course, there's a lot more under the hood going on there, and understanding all of that is very beneficial. But really, as long as you understand the problem that it's trying to solve and what it needs, aka the data, what it needs to solve that problem, then you're really good to go. And so a lot of people are transitioning to this because it's just not incredibly difficult if they are already like to apply it to their existing job. Of course, to get an actual, data scientist deep learning job, you got to know your stuff really well, and you're not going to be able to pass the interviews without really understanding the fundamentals. By the way, for those listening, my pathway to learn that fundamentals is down below. But a lot of people are transitioning to this technical and non-technical, which is just awesome. Okay. Love from Bali. Oh no, I have to keep looking up places. This is awesome. I'm actually learning a ton, and it's very beneficial to me. Bali is a province of Indonesia and the westernmost of the Lesser Sunda Islands, east of Java. I don't know what Java is, and west of Lombok. Lombok? Yes, Lombok. The province includes the island of Bali. Cool. Well, greetings from there. I need to pull this up. I'm pretty sure I know where Indonesia is. Let me look. No, that's actually not where I thought it was. That's awesome. So just above Australia. That's so cool. Well, greetings from Canada, from someone that does not know much about geography, and I'm very happy to learn. Okay. So thanks for a great tutorial. You're very, very welcome. Really appreciate your videos. You're super welcome. I'm very glad to hear they're providing value. Love from Sri Lanka. That is awesome. I do know where that one is. Hey, Techo? Am I a Techo? I know tech, so I'm a Techo. Suggest me how to build a sustainable career as a data scientist, where to focus, and stacks. Currently working as a back-end developer, data analyst at a telecommunications company. Thanks in advance, I think is what TIA is, right? Okay, so I find the techo thing funny. Suggest me how to build a sustainable career as a data scientist. Well, I really do strongly believe in that pathway that I have down below. So it's got a lot of material. And just to read it out quickly, I don't want to bore the people that have heard me say this 10 times, but begin your data science journey. So something that's kind of relaxed, and a really good introduction to the field, with also a certificate that I think is worth getting, is the IBM Data Science. And then you need to learn machine learning from that, because it doesn't go too much into machine learning stuff. So I recommend most the Andrew Ng one from Corsair as well. All of this stuff down below is from Coursera. It's my recommended pathway. It's not the only pathway. I've started being more open to things like Udemy and Udacity, but from the bottom of my heart, I think Corsair is the best option, and it's the best option whether you are able to pay for the certificates or you're not, and that's why I promote it so heavily. IBM data science, then machine learning, and then if you want to learn some of the more detailed stuff, the Imperial College London Math for Machine Learning is great. The Stanford University algorithms is difficult but very, very useful. And most importantly, the Deep Learning Fundamentals, the Deep Learning Specialization by Andrew Ng, that is the most important thing that you can do to get a job in data science. At least I'm not saying that if you get that, you will get a job in data science. Learning the material in that and also the certificate is helpful, will allow you to branch out and learn all the different components. Like, it teaches you convolutional nets, LSTMs, so for time series, and all these different things that deep learning will help solve. It solves pretty much any industry you can look in and find a problem to solve with deep learning, and I really recommend that you do. So super cool stuff, and most importantly, it's just fun. I'm extremely passionate about that domain, and the coding behind it. Once you get past the initial hump of Python programming and working with pandas a little bit, NumPy a little bit, and TensorFlow Keras, once you understand what's under the hood, that stuff gets really, really easy to program, and you just kind of fight around with it until you build the model that you want, and you're able to evaluate those models. Greg, how the data scientist got data? How the data scientist? Which one got data scientist to analyze, and what is the minimal quality to have a good validation data set? So how do you get data sets? I'll correct me down below, but I'm going to answer the question, how do data scientists get these data sets? So if you're working in a company, then they'll have many different ways of getting your data, whether it is, kind of loosely organized, where there's like 1,000 different relational tables in a database, and you can go and pick those up. Or maybe it's even really poorly organized, where it's just like an actual dump of data, and you have to go dig from that. There are these things called data warehouses, which has very organized, important information, and a lot of it, which is useful. There are so from the internet is has a ton of different stuff, and you can go to Google Images and they have all that stuff there. You have to sometimes be careful about what you're using, because you don't always have the rights to all of this stuff, even though it's on Google. I can't just right now I can't just go to Google Images and show you all those images, because that's a copyright thing. But people definitely use the internet to get data sets for sure. Lots of them are public. For example, from Kaggle. Kaggle has lots of open source data sets, and I make sure to look and see what the rights are for the data set before I use it in a tutorial. And if you've heard of web scraping, that's really just an automated way to actually pull information from like the HTML and sometimes just download information from the web. How hard is it to get a job in the USA in a data science field? Well, luckily the USA is very big, and so if you asked something more specific, like how hard is it to get a job in Silicon Valley, California in data science, I would say, it's possible, but you have to be really good. That's the same for the United States as well, but there's a lot of opportunities. So just apply if you think you have the skills, or if you have, if you're working towards those skills. There's no shame in applying, throwing stuff out, and the worst that happens is you get no replies. The second worst thing that happens is you get replies and you fail the interview, but that's actually extremely useful to do that, to go and fail interviews. You learn a lot. And the best thing that happens is that you get a job. So really, those things are, it's difficult to answer. How difficult is it to get a job? There's many factors at play, like the school that you came from, the particular education that it was, the certificates that you have on your LinkedIn, how social is, how good is your personal brand, what connections do you have with other people in the country, what amazing projects do you have on your resume to make you stand out. Your grades at the university. There's a lot of different things at play, and they all have some difficult weighting to produce whatever result you're calling yourself. So there's a lot at play. So I can't say it's easy or it's difficult. What I can say is that there's a lot of opportunities, and so I would just apply. Go to LinkedIn, go to Indeed, go to the company's websites, and just send off applications, and you will do just fine. Seriously. Maybe you get no hits back. That doesn't matter. Keep building up your portfolio. Keep doing what you can, and eventually something will work out. And maybe it's not in the United States. If you in particular really want the United States, of course it's arguably the best country in the world, and so I wouldn't blame you for that. But there's lots of other places that you can go to get some meaningful, at least learning experience to get you closer to the United States if that's what you want at the end. Please give LinkedIn tips. Sure, I will give LinkedIn tips. Let me go to my LinkedIn. I was about to say I need to make sure that there's nothing I wouldn't want to show on there, but that's kind of the purpose of my LinkedIn, is to show it to people. So I think it's probably fine. Okay, so basically, here's my LinkedIn. And here's this person. Hello. Okay, so you can see, great, I have 16 notifications. I'm not looking forward to reading all of those. Okay, so what do I have here? I have an interesting background. You might not have this interesting of a background because one, you can't be bothered to produce this design, which took 4 hours, but it does look pretty in my opinion. And we have a nice picture. So at least make sure that you've got a nice picture, and make sure that you're as handsome as me, because it turns out that you are 72% more likely to get a job if you look as beautiful as this person right here. Just a tip. It's not really something you can change though, so you might have to just deal with it. Joking, obviously, you do want to have a headline that's catchy. I see a lot of them that are not catchy, that are something like data science student, or aspiring data scientist, or student. So try your best, and you can be a little bit cocky. It's good to be a cocky, like humbly cocky, as in you need to just kind of state things as they are. And professional data scientist is accurate. University of Waterloo statistics major is accurate. And I'm trying to get people to subscribe, so it's a little bit different, but it's still very, very similar. And so you need this to be catchy, and to really show off the best possible reason why someone would hire you. You need to put that in your headline, make it short, summarized, and good to go. This is stuff that I don't think you should really be seeing, but I don't care. Okay, and then you have your jobs. Okay, so your about section is, I wouldn't put as much thought into it as as some of these other sections, because personally I don't really want to read all about who this person is. I just want to summarize. I just want to understand quickly who they are. And so I do that with reading the experience they've done. And so of course, this is largely dependent on the things that you've done, and this takes time, this takes effort, this takes a bit of luck to get the things that are on here, but you have to show, no matter what they are, you have to properly convey them. And so this one's a little bit different because I can't share too much about exactly what I did there. And so I just developed deep learning methods using lung ultrasound videos, and I'd write a little bit more, but I can't really. This one again is to show people, both employers and people that might want to subscribe, that this is something that is meaningful. I teach data science and machine learning from my YouTube channel with great numbers. Numbers are always good if you can. And here's really the jobs that are more likely that you'll see something, a little closer to what you would get, I'm guessing. But of course, everyone is different. So machine learning engineer, I was really happy to have landed this job for Loblaw Companies Limited. Aided development of an LSTM, that stands for long short-term memory. It is a type of deep learning model for generally time series, like forecasting information. So an LSTM-based neural network model to forecast sales demand. Data scientist at Economical, developed and deployed a fraud detection model. Software developer, there's also another one there. And University of Waterloo is there as well. And these things it doesn't really matter too much if you're endorsed. if you're watching this right now, I wouldn't mind if you dropped an endorse if you haven't already, but it doesn't really matter. And so yeah, so I just went through my LinkedIn, and basically you can see a few particular things. One, I'm not writing a massive blurb about every single thing that I did, and the reason for that is because probably no one will read it. If you have something incredibly phenomenal that deserves a big explanation, then sure, maybe you should give a video about you actually doing it or explaining it. But in general, I write and this is the same as my resume, although I won't be showing my particular resume. I write very brief, specific, summarized sentences that explain what I did to people. And I mean people, as in, I'm not explaining this assuming that you know so much about deep learning and all of this different stuff. I developed deep learning methods. If you don't know what those are, that's fine. Using lung ultrasound videos. Okay, people know what this is. Your lungs. People do ultrasound to understand what's in there, and I use deep learning methods on those. People understand that. I teach data science and machine learning. Everyone will understand that. Aided development of a particular neural network. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. To forecast sales demand. Okay, this is a pretty common thing, which is to predict what people are buying. Developed and deployed a fraud detection model. Okay, fraud is about, it's a really common insurance thing, but it's also common in other pieces as well. It's just a sentence that makes sense. That's not what I meant to do. Yeah, so that's the idea. So a couple really big tips are throw in your headline something that is catchy, something that really makes you you. You want to put out the jobs that you have. If you have those, if you don't, then you have to get some sort of a first job at some point, and that one's always more difficult. You will see in general, I would be more happy about every job after the first one. And so, I remember how I felt at this time applying to a lot of different jobs, and I took this one, which was a great experience, but it was not what I wanted to be full time. Moved up, and it just gets better and better. So don't worry, everyone's path looks different, but most people's paths are starting not exactly where you want to be and moving up from there. A good school is very helpful. So of course, if you are in a position to be able to try and get into a good university, then I still highly recommend that. But if you don't, this is where I would put, and as you can see, I don't put Coursera certifications because I don't think I need to, because of the jobs that I got without them, and because of the degree itself. But this is a really good spot for if you are in that position and you're wondering, should I put certifications on, should I get these certifications? It's a really good way to show, if you don't have this statistics background and you don't already have a couple jobs in there, that it shows, hey, yes, I know deep learning. I haven't done it for somebody. I haven't been paid a lot of money to do deep learning for these people, but I've taken these. I know what I'm doing, and I actually paid for the certificate to show you that I know this stuff. So that's where I think it's beneficial to put it there. And I think it means, if these numbers were like 100 or 1,000, like some people have, that would be beneficial. But don't really worry about this too much that, 12 people said that I'm good at Python. No one really cares. Accomplishments is an important section as well. I put courses here. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have to update this. I'm guessing there's some stuff I don't have there. And projects. Okay, so people will look at this. I have a Python package. I have Know Your Fruit, which is a web application, and there's Biomon, which is a app that I made before I went to university. So you can see here June 2017, and then I went to school in this is September 2017. Okay, so this stuff really helped, and in fact, an interesting story about this one. Let me actually see what I had. I think this is the YouTube video. I can't really show my YouTube video again because YouTube would be annoyed that I'm doing that. Click on that if you want to check it out. But basically, this app, sorry, I just smacked this. This app really helped me get at least interviews for my first job. So I didn't end up getting the job, but I got many interviews for this position of the internship for different companies because I had that app on there and I knew very little about programming. I just was passionate about something. It's basically a Pokemon clone, and I was passionate about it. I just coded it a lot, and it showed employers that, yeah, okay, this guy he's never done programming for somebody, but clearly he knows what he's doing. Clearly he's passionate about programming, and we want to bring him to this job. I didn't actually get the offer because I did absolutely terrible in the interview, and that's how it goes. Sorry, I'm just having hiccups. But yeah, so you need to show people somehow. If you don't have a job already, then you need to show them that you know what you're doing before, because every single person has been in a position where they haven't had a good job before. I know it might not look that way, but every single person started with 0 jobs and got 1. Therefore, if you are in that right now, then you need to show your skills. Corsair certifications are a good way to do that. Putting projects are a good way to do that right there. And by the way, notice what I'm doing. I have C project, C project, C project. There are links. I know a lot of people that just put a project, write something about it, and then they don't link it, and that does absolutely nothing, because it's like, great, okay, you supposedly did something, but I can't see it. I have no idea if you actually did it. And so you have to link this stuff, and you can do that properly in LinkedIn. Okay, so those are my main LinkedIn tips. I hope that that provided some value. If you guys have any questions, I would be down to answer them, and I will be reading what you have over here if there are any questions on that. So that was I'm sure that was please give LinkedIn tips. So I'm in a test right now for a BI analyst job, and I need to build homogeneous groups of clients in Python. Group, okay. Can you recommend any algorithm or something? Probably clustering. So this sounds like a clustering problem, I think, which is k-means, dbScan, hdbScan, hierarchical clustering, which I probably should learn, but I know the other ones. Love from India. Hello. Thank you. I appreciate it. When you get the data set and a problem statement, how do you start analyzing the data set, and how do you use graphs to show your analysis? Okay, so I like Python, and I don't think it said here at any point that you're using Python. But what I would do is just go into Colab, or if I'm working in a company and they have some different environment like Databricks or whatever, or your Jupyter Notebook or whatever, then you go in and just import as pandas, open up the data, make histograms, make pie charts. I like Plotly. I really like Plotly for visualization. And you just start looking at the data and figuring out what you can, get averages, get standard deviations. You can do a pandas describe, which gives you information about all the different columns. And then from there, I guess if you have a problem statement, then you just, if it's a machine learning model, then you try to figure out how to make the best one of that through trial and error. And yeah, I hoped that did anything. Let me know if you have any more, if you have a particular question on that. No problem. What main visualization do you start with? Whoa, okay, I'm glad that I pretty much just answered that. What main visualization do you start with when you first see your data? Generally, I start with, data. I'm going to assume it's in like a CSV, and so I'd import it as pandas. I'd probably do a describe to look at what the columns are. I might start getting histograms, but I might get averages and standard deviations. But for the most part, I don't always. I know that a lot of projects say stuff like, we're going to just start with exploratory data analysis, where you open up the data and then you make 50 graphs on it. And you might want to do that, but you also really might not care. And so it's about trying to get value from something. You might see that from graphs. You might see that from like histograms or whatever. You might also just see that from, oh, this column is here, but I'm actually really interested in understanding and solving this problem. And so I think this column will help me predict this column or whatever. So it's not always about just blind visualization about I'm going to make histograms of everything and hope that everything lines up. You have to think critically about how to get value out of things. I'm currently following your roadmap. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Still on the IBM course. That's great. I recently stumbled upon another roadmap by OSSU. I don't know what that is. Are you aware of this roadmap? Well, I guess not, because I don't know what OSSU is. And if you do, what is your opinion of that? Let me take a look. Why not? OSSU Data Science Pathway? I'll search that. I feel like I've heard of OSSU. Who are these people? Path to a free self-taught education, open source society university. I have heard of that, but I know very little. They have, what is data science? Wait, that linked? That linked to the Coursera? Oh, never mind. I don't really know. I wish I did, but I really don't. So where do you work full time? I do not work any full time anywhere right now. I just came off of an internship where, if you saw my LinkedIn there, I worked at a company called Deep Breathe, a very, very small group of people, and they were solving some very interesting problems. That was my last internship, and I'm just finishing up school in 4 months, and I may or may not do a full-time data science job. It depends how this whole YouTube gig goes. But I'll continue YouTube and grinding away at that no matter what. Please let us also... Did I get called Techo again? I don't understand. Let us also know some of the projects for freshers that help to get hired fast. Love you and keep doing great things. I really appreciate the kind words. Okay, so unfortunately it doesn't necessarily work that way when you put 2 projects on your resume, and then and they're really good projects, and you've got to get hired super quickly. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't really. But nonetheless, projects can be very beneficial to improving your portfolio. Now, in general, people care about good projects and less about bad projects. And there's no such thing as a bad project as in a waste of your time. Like something like California housing is not a bad project. It's just, it's not going to make people incredibly impressed by you. But there is something like, California housing or Titanic or or MNIST handwritten digits. I wouldn't recommend putting that on your resume. That will not help you get hired fast. But if you do the more complicated ones that really show that you're solving hopefully a real problem, or at least not, you made a cool application, and it really is about effort. If you put a lot of effort into a project, it'll probably look good. It will probably, solve some important problem. And that's when people are going to start to be interested from a project point of view. Of course, that's not the only thing. And if you want me to name specifics there, then, something like Flask, Fast API, learning those really starts to show employers that you're not one of the people that just go to Kaggle and solve a problem there and claim that you're a data scientist, that you actually can make a machine learning model. You put that into production, you know all the code around GitHub, around the virtual environments, around how web clients work with each other is not bad at all. And that's when you start to get people a little bit more impressed by what you're doing. Nonetheless, I do not want to say something like, if you get this certification, you will get a job. If you get this project, you will get a job. These are all things that will be very beneficial to make people more interested in you in general. Okay. I hope you are having a great day. Thank you. I am having a great day and a great live session. I appreciate that. Is it possible we can have a live session for your students of first semester in university to encourage them for data science and such skills? Let me know when when that would make sense for you. So message me on LinkedIn privately, please, and we can definitely be in touch on that one. Can I register this video in my channel? Yes. That actually always happens, Adam. That will always be the case. You can just, is it? I don't know if it's Adam or Adam, but sorry about that. It's always registered. So if you go to the video, if you see my page, it might take a couple hours to properly upload. I'm not sure how it works, but this video will be. You can watch it again and again, and I don't even have to do anything. It's just by default. difference between data analyst and data engineer. So basically, an analyst is someone I more think of statistics when I hear analyst, and that means that you are. It's not as simple as just computing an average or computing a standard deviation or doing a linear regression. Although those are all things that you may be doing and may be helpful doing. But analyst is more so on that number crunching piece, where it's like, okay, I've got data. How do I actually get value out of this data? Data engineers, they say, I know there's a lot of people in the company that could get value from this data, like an analyst, like a machine learning engineer, like my boss, like the CEO. And so data engineers are in charge of very efficiently bringing that data to the right place at the right time. And so that is the main difference. You have gaps in math and only basic knowledge of Python and algorithms. Yeah, that's pretty common. It's okay. What level of all this should I have to start learning data analytics? I assume is DA. There's a lot of acronyms out there. So basically, if you, okay, so if you have basic knowledge of Python and algorithms, what level of this should I start? I mean, you can start anytime. For data analytics, I would get a bit more of a statistics background, so learn what linear regression is, learn what variance is, and standard deviation, and averages, and all of that simple stuff. Simple from a math point of view. You can go a lot more in depth into math. But I don't recommend that you need to learn linear algebra and calculus and all this different stuff. It doesn't hurt, but I don't think you do. And any level of Python knowledge is very, very helpful. And if you are going into data analytics in particular, then R is a good programming language for that. It almost hurt me to say that. I don't like R because I think Python is better, but specifically in the analytics field, R is still pretty popular. So take your pick though. And so what level should you have before you start? Just start. For data analytics, it's not as something as crazy as learning deep learning. There's a lot of fundamentals there to learn, but for data analytics, really just go through the IBM. There's a data analytics course, or the data science would be. It's pretty similar, and go from there. Thank you for your advice. You are very welcome. Love from Peru. Hello, Peru. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, I think I'm gonna call it. I've been going for 2 hours strong, and I really appreciate the people that are here, the people that I know that you can't hear me, but for the people that showed up earlier, I really appreciate that. And yeah, thanks so much for coming, and I would love to do another live soon. I'm so happy for all the people that came over in the last 2 hours, and yeah, I'll see you next time. It's midnight for me now. Yeah, I know it is. Thanks for answering your questions. You're very welcome. You have a great day or a great night as well. When do you realize you're ready for a job? Whenever you think that you're ready for a job. Simple as that. I'm just going to hang out on my phone for 2 minutes while this closes. But yeah. You're very welcome. Okay, bye guys. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it.